The following content contains personal experiences of our hosts and guests. We are not experts in this matter. We encourage challenging conversations with others and to achieve healing from our childhood. We hope to connect and allow a safe space to have an open discussion. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a qualified professional, diagnosis, or treatment.
Welcome back, First Gen podcast listeners. So great to have you guys with us. With the holidays coming up, I hope everyone's staying safe, healthy. Hope you guys will be with your family and friends. And speaking of friends, we have
Karina joining us today. Welcome.
Hello, thank
Welcome
you.
to our podcast.
I'm so excited to be here.
Love it. We're excited for you to join us. Fun fact, we reconnected recently at a mutual friends party.
Yeah.
It's been years.
Yes.
Yeah. I knew Karina through old classmate of mine through college, and
I married him.
you married him. And started talking about our podcast, and very excited that we can also connect and learn a little bit more about your background and the impact of your upbringing and all that. So yeah, I know Nina, you connected with her more during during the party.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's talk about it. I think this
Yeah.
is a warm and safe space for us to chat things through. And I know the holidays are coming up, so it's a lot of
Yes.
seeing family members as well.
Yeah.
And that dynamic.
Yeah, definitely wrought with froth.
That's a good one.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you for creating the space, because when I was talking to Nina, and I think before you had arrived to the party, I was like, this is incredible, and I'm so happy to hear that even if I didn't have this opportunity, that this space was already doing its thing, and reaching the listeners. So I thought that was really cool, and just how much you and I have seen each other throughout the years,
Mhm.
mutual friends' birthday parties, but we that opportunity of talking about our families and what it means to be first gen, never, right? It just
Didn't come out organically until
which is
recently.
fine.
Yeah, which is
But I
totally
was like,
fine.
this is so
This
cool.
is kind of meant to have
Yes.
that conversation now. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
I do too. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think how that even that conversation came up, but
I think, Kevin Go, who was on our show
Yeah.
a few months back, he started telling you about it.
mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, we talked about it. And so you sharing your story with me, I thought, this is amazing. I'd love to have you on the show. So yeah, I just wanted to have you tell our listeners where your parents are from, your upbringing. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah. So both my parents are Salvadoran. My mom, she immigrated while she was still pregnant with me, from El Salvador to here, in the 80s. I don't know my biological father. I actually might be able to possibly meet him in this coming year. So yeah,
awesome.
yes, that'll be a part 2 for
Yeah.
my next
Yes.
visit.
Put that out there. Put that out there.
So yeah, so I was raised by my mom, and then I grew up in LA. She met my stepdad when I was 4 years old. They got married, and then so he's Caucasian. His whole family's Caucasian. So I was very much raised with knowing that I have strong Salvadoran roots, but then also having this my white side of the family, and also being I don't know, there was just this constant duality for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. So one thing that I was like, man, I don't know if I've been able to share this with a lot of people, but I really wanted to be white for a really long time. I don't know if you guys had that experience, but
Yes.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
There was a time period where I leaned against my roots,
yeah,
leaned away from it, and
Yes.
rejected it, unfortunately. And I'm ashamed for that part, but also learned and grown from it.
yeah,
But I totally hear you on that.
yeah, absolutely. I think it was I, I don't know if I feel ashamed of it now. I think that it was really just this, what we don't see in the media.
Yep.
to me, like all the cool, pretty ones were just like white girls with like blonde hair, and we had like Shakira and Jennifer Lopez is like the like Latin ones, but like they dyed their hair blonde. I was like, I didn't even see like my own hair represented, So, yeah, I think a lot of it was just like I just didn't see myself in what I saw in media and like TV and like MTV. Like growing up in the 90s, it was huge, to be connected that way. So, yeah. So I did what you said. Like I just did like a 180, and I was like, now I love my Salvadoran roots. I love where my family is from, like a very, very poor background. I embrace it. I love it. I used to like not like Spanish music. My mom used to play it all the time. I did not like it, and now I love it. I love watching Spanish like music and bands, and like going to like the baby showers where they get like wild and crazy with the cumbia, and I'm like, yes, my people. Yeah. So
Yeah. No, the embracing part. I totally hear you on that, because it's like now I'm like relearning, our roots when I've for a long time rejecting, because the media, it just did not portray people that look like me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to be like that. Or through high school was like, oh, Abercrombie and Fitch or Hollister. I needed to get that polo shirt, I had to dress a certain way just to like feel like I fit in or what have you. So that's what was surrounded, and seeing that in the media. And then I was like, that's to fit in. It's like, that's where I need to go. And embracing the American side instead of like, oh, this Filipino, you kind of get made fun of, or like type of foods we eat. Like it was just not embraced as much as it is nowadays. And I think it's a nice growth from what we were used to back then growing up. So it's a lot of relearning and embracing our roots.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing finally to be like, I'm not hiding from that identity that I've had for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, some people might disagree with this, but for Filipinos, we feel like it was just recently that Filipinos started becoming more present or represented in the media, on the big screen, all of that. But what has your experience been as a Latina? Did you feel like, when did you start kind of seeing, like you said, your people in the media? What was that experience for you?
Man, I feel like it was probably in the last like 10 years, just like progressively with, there's a show called Hentified that I really liked. And that one was really, cool. And like, I could kind of relate, but I didn't like grow up in East LA. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. And, but I feel like there's been this like slow progression at first, and now it just became very like prominent of like these like people of color and like immigrant stories being featured as like the main story. And it's awesome, but I feel I guess like mixed feelings, because the people who are like still producing kind of like behind, like it's not necessarily like us being represented, right? But I'm sure over time, I hope that will change. And like I look up to like America Ferrera, who like produces, and like she really advocates for like young, especially like Latina, like people of color, like their stories to be featured, because I think it's so fascinating, like to have grown up in a different like culture than what your parents grew up, because they, at least for me, like my family, like my mom really wanted me to be like Salvadoran, yet to like assimilate and like be able to code switch into like American, so like there's this constant like filter that was being like reminded, like, okay, like make sure you say things this way. And I didn't even know that like I like talk white until like later on, when like in college people were like, hey, you sound like a white girl, and I'm like, what does that mean? But deep down I was like, oh, I think I know what that means. Like my mom like made me kind of think more, I guess be more aware of like how I was representing myself. There was this constant like, how are you presenting yourself? Because your presentation is also our family's presentation, like you're representing us. And so I think I just always was like conflicted. Like I want to be American. I want to have like this sort of like white girl status. But my mom is always like, but mija, like, you got to know like the Spanish songs. I mean, she didn't force me, but like like for Christmas, you know what I was mentioning, it was always very confusing time, and I would talk to my friends about how like, you know, what was your Christmas like? You know, this is what it was like for me, and it wasn't until like we shared, we're like, oh man, like that is a it's an experience that I'm sure is like outside of just us two. You know, like we've had other people say like, yeah, like that Christmas was weird because um, like we would have Spanish music playing, and I always wanted like the Frank Sinatra, the White Christmas, like the English, you know, like traditional, like
Bing
all the
Crosby.
exactly, yeah, the
Yeah.
warm, cozy, you know, let's watch the like American Christmas movies, and my mom would like put in the cassette player like these Spanish songs, and like a few of them were like happy and like kind of like you know festive upbeat, and then there'd be like a good handful that were like sad, like you know, we're like spending Christmas without our mom and stuff like that. And like she'd be crying, like, what is this is not like Christmas. This is like depressing. Like and then we'd have to wait for like midnight. Did you guys do that? Like for Christmas presents? Like it's like an American
Christmas
thing
Eve,
to
right?
do. Yeah.
Mhm.
So which was not bad, but I was like, can we do like the Christmas Day? You know, doesn't it sound nice to like get up in your PJs and open and she was yeah it was just like no like the tradition is you wait until like midnight, which was like god, and we're like
Right.
come on people, let's
Let me eat
Past
those
my
cookies
bedtime.
and milk that we left Santa here.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, or stuff like that, like those traditions were just not or yeah, even like Santa Claus. Were you guys allowed to believe in Santa Claus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Allowed, so it was
Al-
forbidden for you.
Yeah, well I mentioned like I had a white family, right? My dad's parents, and they were very traditional in like the American customs and like Christmas stuff. And so my grandma would be like, "Oh, like this is a present from Santa," or like she was always alluding to Santa Claus. And then at some point, I don't even know how old I was, maybe like before the age of 10, I went back to my mom and I mentioned like Santa, like, "Oh, Santa Claus real," you know? And I don't know what her exact words were, but it was very much like, um, yeah, it'd be nice if that was like true, you know, like real. And like, but she was like, no, no, like there was just there's no room for like foolishness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Foolery.
Oh my
Yeah. So just like that stuff, you know, she didn't buy into it. Like, yeah. And so I was like, all right, well, cool. Well, let's move on now. So, yeah, it was hard because I really wanted to enjoy like Christmas the way a lot of people I saw on TV enjoyed Christmas, and that just it was really hard. But you know she always made things like you know shout out to mom, like she always gave amazing gifts. She's always been a really great gift giver, but it was just a struggle in the moment, you know, like
Yeah.
yeah
Yeah, because you're like stuck between two worlds
Yeah.
essentially, and you're told one thing, then you're told another thing.
mm-hmm.
It's like where do I? It's like double dutch. Like where am I slipping in here? And that's very confusing as a child growing up.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I thought you wanted me to embrace the American culture, but here's our culture and our
Yeah.
roots, so I'm confused.
Yeah, there's like limitations, right?
Yeah.
There's like a threshold of what would be allowed. And I don't know if it was similar for you both, but there's like an undercurrent of sadness because she was away from her family, which makes sense. Like looking back, I'm like, yes, like I understand that. But before there was just this like why is there like crying right now? You know, like this should be like happy and light. And there would always be like just that little like this like moment of like heartbreak for her that was not it wasn't easy for me to understand. Now I do.
Yeah.
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 What was like for you? Because I grew up in Minnesota. She was out here in LA. So
Yeah. I mean, very grateful that we do have families in each of our cities where we grew up.
Yeah.
So I did love the holidays because we would all gather together, feast, open gifts together, and we're a big family, so it's just like here in LA, in California, we either switch off whoever, like our uncle's place or my mom's place, and we would spend it together. There were times where we do Christmas Eve and stay
Mhm.
up, um, or whether it's we don't open all the presents though. It's just
Mhm.
like you get to pick one or two,
Yeah.
and then the next day would be, oh, let's see what Santa got you, or check your stocking, see what Santa left
Yeah.
you. So as and then we would just continue to have all the food, all the feasts and blessings that we're all gathered together. So
Mhm.
it was a nice time growing up because we got to be around our family, and it felt very warm and cozy, which was nice. But yeah, overall, like our whole entire family was separate. So I think we would call each other on
Mm.
occasions. Like our
Yeah, for
parents
sure.
would call
Yeah.
Minnesota
Yeah.
or vice versa, and we'd be
Mhm.
like, Merry
Yeah.
Christmas or Happy New Year, one of
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know how it was in Minnesota for you.
Well, we had snow, so it was like
Mhm.
full on.
You got real,
Yeah,
real
you got real
Christmas.
White
Christmas.
Christmas.
You got the
real
Christmas.
white Christmas. And my parents, like, we full on, like, did the whole writing letters to Santa Claus, everything. Like, so growing up, I mean, going back to your point earlier, like, about being white, I mean, I was surrounded by white people. I was the
Mhm.
only Asian person in my class. So I was like, I'm white. And my parents, they didn't teach us the language. My brother speaks a little bit of Tagalog. He's older than me, but they really wanted us to just fit in to school. Like, they very rarely like made lunch for us. And if they did, it was like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or it's like, just eat the American food at school
Mhm.
and like fit in, learn English, all of
Mm.
that. So Christmas for us, that was like full on, like, yeah, Santa Claus is coming, you better be good, write your letter, all of
Aw.
that. I like fully believed in Santa Claus. Like, I was heartbroken when I found out that was real. Okay. So Christmas, yeah, very similar. I mean, we had relatives in Minnesota, so yeah, we would have different people host. But yeah, it would be like presents. There wasn't really a lot of traditions, I guess,
Mhm.
from our culture that at least for me, that I, growing up, it was just very much like, okay, this is Christmas and you open presents, Santa, all of that.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, though, it was a little bit weirder because my parents didn't grow up in this country, so
Mhm.
Thanksgiving's an American holiday.
Yeah.
So growing up, like when we were younger, we would come home from school and we'd be like, oh yeah, for Thanksgiving, we're supposed to have turkey, mashed potatoes, all of this. And they're like, what? Like,
Yeah.
we're not going to buy a turkey. How do you bake a turkey? How
Yeah.
do you,
Yeah.
like,
Who doesn't
Yeah,
make
who
this
doesn't?
menu and why?
Yeah. So we never really had a turkey. I think eventually my parents started doing the turkey thing, but it was just like, no, this is a day off for them from work. They get to like,
long
we just
weekend.
hang out. Yeah, it was always kind of a weird holiday.
Yeah.
So like even now, like this week, we're gonna go to my brother's and no one's gonna cook a turkey. It's just gonna be regular food.
Yeah.
But everyone has a dietary restriction now, so I'm like, oh my god, it has to be gluten free,
Yeah.
vegan, whatever. I'm like, I can't cook for people. But yeah, no, I mean, Christmas was such a memorable time because of the snow that we had outside. Like it
Yeah.
felt real. So moving out here, I'm like, wait, where's my white Christmas?
Yeah. No. Get over it, baby.
I know,
Yeah.
right? I'm fine with it now. I can't be in cold weather.
Really?
So yeah, I've
It's
totally
in our blood, tropical.
I know.
know,
Yeah.
duh.
No, it's so true. Yeah.
Yeah.
My skin is just like cracking all over
Yeah.
the place. It's awful.
So dry.
Yeah, well, Thanksgiving, yeah, that was always, I always wanted, like, oh, why aren't we doing the turkey? There's always this, like, how come we're not, like, aren't we supposed to be, like, American, kind of? And there's only 4 of us. So I think for my mom, realistically, she's like, I'm not going to cook this whole turkey, like, spend all day for just the 4 of us, and, like, I don't know if you girls are going to even like it, me and my sister. But I think over time, she kind of gave in into the tradition, but it was a very slow, like, okay, well, maybe this time I'll make the potatoes, or eventually I'll do the green beans thing, and like she would start to kind of like put it in. But actually, she would make this really good, like these turkey sandwiches. It's like pavo con pan con pavo, which
Okay.
is like this like French bread, with French style bread that a lot of like Salvadorans like eat, and also like Mexicans will have it. Like they'll use it to make or like have it with coffee or like a torta or something like that. But she would make like a turkey salad and then like put it in the bread, and that was delicious. Like I
Oh.
prefer that over like the turkey now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then now we will, like, she has a partner and he grew up in the States. So, like, that's very much embedded in his tradition. So, we're definitely doing, like, the full on turkey, you know, which is fine. But I think she's such like an objective, pragmatic, realistic person that everything needed to have, like, some sort of, like, a reason and, like, a use for. And if it was useless or, like, extra, she was like, no, we can't. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not worth it right now, you know. But she eventually would like give in over time,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. And I think she likes it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I was going to say, actually, like going back to, you were saying how, like when I saw like representation, and I like kind of mentioned it earlier, like of like myself or like my image. Um, Another like really great movie that I was like, oh, this is so great is the Wakanda Forever. So the one with like the Tenoch Huerta, and then and where like they go into like the Mexican like old like ancient civilization. I
Oh,
thought
yeah.
that was really cool.
Mhm.
Like I really love that. And then I was mentioning to you guys earlier, like Encanto was one that I as like a 30-some-year-old woman was like crying because of the hair and like the texture, and it's just like, wow, like that is my hair, and like Bruno's hair, and how like it's like, what is it? It's like inconsistent, like the curls. Like I've had my curls for a long time now, and like it is a pain and a half to like maintain and like get ready and all this stuff. And so like to see like that's exactly what my hair looks like, and it was shown in a way that wasn't like diminishing, was so powerful to me. And I felt so happy that, you know, if I have kids or like the kids now, they have that as like a reference point. Like, this is beautiful. This is, and it's like different kinds of textures, but I just did not see that you either had like the straight and the blonde, or you had like black and like kinky hair. You know, there was kind of like, I didn't really see a whole lot of like in between. There was always very like straightened out or something. And so I don't know, I think now it's so much more like featured, which is awesome. But I was like ashamed. I was like, I'm crying, and they're like, oh, you love the movie. I was like, I love the hair in the movie. Yeah. So that was really cool. But did you guys see, like, who are your like people that you're like, oh, like this, they look like me, and this is something that I'm seeing. And you know, you guys mentioned it kind of becoming like kind of more recent of seeing, you know, people like different kinds of Asians represented.
Yeah. I know, I'm trying to think. I mean, when I was younger, like if we're gonna talk about like Disney movies or anything, it was like Pocahontas or Mulan. The only reason for Pocahontas is because I had really long, dark hair.
Yeah.
And it was like the only character that sort of kind of
100%,
looked me, and I
yes.
was tan. And then, yeah, Mulan. I mean, you know, like just growing up back then, I had to identify with another like Asian country of some sort. But I'm trying to think now, like who it'd be.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more like men, like I mean, like Joe Coy and stuff, and like, you know, like he's trying to kind of, you know, expand that space.
Yeah, which is
but
great.
Totally,
You
yeah.
know, and I
But-
think early 2000s, like Manny Pacquiao really
Oh, right, yeah,
put
yeah.
the Philippines on the map,
Yeah. It's
true.
which brought a lot of people together and like rooting for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, it was like Mulan growing up. And as of recently, I'm trying to, it's just because I recently watched this, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Really connected with me when I first saw it. I was bawling for that movie.
Same.
Just the relation between the mom and the daughter situation resonated with me so much, and I felt so seen. That I'm like, yes, this is the dynamic occasionally that happens, and it's on the screen. It's on the screen, and it's being represented. And I was like, I don't feel alone anymore. So that really, as of recently, that's one of the ones, because I just rewatched it the other day, so it's really fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
Well, we reviewed Dee Dee, so that was like another movie that sort of showed the relationship between a mom and a son, and him growing up here in the U.S. and kind of that struggle. Yeah, I'm blanking out right now. I should have came prepared. But yeah,
I know
there-
that's a
where's
great
that?
question.
It is such a great question.
very great question.
That's a good, I get the big bucks around
yeah,
I
here.
know.
I was like, which
No, I
one
think
is
that's
it?
great. I mean, I bet we can do a whole episode of just like that dynamic in with the mom and the daughter and
Yeah.
everything everywhere all at once. Yeah, that same. I was like, without saying a whole lot, they captured just like the complexity of like the mother daughter relationship and just the mom trying to like survive and also, and I think that's what is the conflict maybe for me, and I wonder if it's for you, like our, like in this case, like my mom was like surviving for a long time in this country, and then for me I was like, I'm surviving, like I have like my physical needs met, and now I want to like thrive, I want to like express myself, but there is this almost like a limitation because she wanted me to be like this image, like her image that she wanted to form, you know? And I kind of felt that with like in the movie where there's this image that she has of her daughter because we're such an extension of our parents.
Mhm.
And I think when we come from parents that are like immigrants, I don't know what it is. I mean, we'll have to like interview, you know,
You
a
need to
parent,
bring a parent
but
over here, yeah.
yeah, it's so, I don't know, but the burden is heavy.
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like talk about prized possession. Like
Yeah.
that is yes, we are their shiny
Mhm.
shiny trophy to
Mhm.
show to the world.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's great to be proud of your your children, but that does put a lot on the kids to sometimes not be themselves because they have to portray and what is it, Mulan? Bring honor to us all.
yeah.
So
Who-
to the ancestors.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's a lot. It's a lot to you're still stuck in between two
Yeah.
worlds,
Mm-hmm.
maybe three, but you're stuck in between trying to I want to be myself, but I'm also this extension of my family.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that being portrayed elsewhere? It's like then the guilt and shame comes in and yeah. So that's fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's more stuff to have to like process through, and yeah, you said something, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Sorry, it will come to me, but I think, oh, I guess I've been thinking about this idea of what you say, like two worlds, and how much we kind of hold within that like life of like living in these two in betweens or like this duality of like cultures and also trying to make space for our own whoever we are and who we want to be and how much like bandwidth that takes. And I've been thinking a lot about how like women in general, they can hold, like we can hold so much emotional bandwidth, like stuff that's not even our own, right? Because people just like share, you know, we're a safe person to talk to.
Yep.
And so we just kind of like, I'll
It's
take that.
added. Yeah.
I'll take it.
It's getting
You know?
heavy.
Yeah. And it just, but like, it's, women break, but it takes a lot for them to break.
Yep.
And just how much that takes up space wise, but also just like emotional, how much we have to like kind of hold. And yeah, and what does that mean? There's no like right or wrong, you know, to that. But I've been wondering and thinking about that and appreciating, I guess, like the women in my life for sure, because it's this. I think we do a lot that is very like invisible labor.
No, you're absolutely right.
I agree.
I think that just growing up with my mom and she raised us after my parents got divorced, it was like, it was exactly what you said. That's what she was doing. She was just carrying all the weight. And like her brothers, her sisters, you know, her nieces, nephews always come to her, you know, and she's a very good listener. Now she is. She wasn't really much back then, but she just had that kind of like maternal, motherly, nurturing vibe. And on top of that, just raising two kids. I mean, I was very rebellious. Like, I feel terrible, like, you know, being this rebellious teenager and all the sacrifices that she's made. But yes, I'm glad you brought that up because, especially for this month, it's just showing that gratitude towards the women in our life that have become role models, that have stayed strong, and has inspired me to become a strong woman as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like with your mom, like I know that you said she grew up in like a poor background. Like, was there pressure for you? Like for us, it was like become a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. Like, was there any sort of like pressure, like, hey, you must be this, or was it more like, hey, I just want you to succeed, be happy? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. There was no like you have to like go into this career, but there was a pressure to like really be. I don't want to say perfect, but like be excellent. Whatever it is that you're gonna be, like do it well. Um, and as long as it takes you to like do it well, like just do it well, and and to just be like like a good representation of yourself. Firstly, so um, I was the first person in our family to go to college, which I'm very, very proud of.
Yeah.
But I also am like, did I have to do that? It's a lot of pressure. But no, I very much like value my college experience. She, as much as she really wanted me to be this well spoken, like presented person, she was not controlling in that way, thankfully. Like I'm sure she had some ideas, but I don't ever recall her being like or saying specifically, "I want you to do this." You know, I think she just wanted me to really be happy, which I'm so thankful that she had that like emotional intelligence to know that like I can't press her too hard because it's not going to be good for her, right? And so so she was always very open. Like I majored in music, which I'm sure she was like, what is she doing? And even when other people were like, what is she going to do with that? You know, she was like, well, I'm sure. I think she actually said to a friend, like, I'm sure she has ideas. You know, like she defended me, and that I was. Yeah,
That's
even
beautiful.
now, I'm just like, man, go mom. Yeah, she had my back. So thankfully, there wasn't any like pressure or like rigidity with like I have to go into this career field. Yeah. Did you have that, Tiff?
Oh, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was a struggle.
We did.
Most definitely. You know, a TV film, it's not a place to like for success.
Yeah.
And yeah, my parents were really pushing to like, oh, find something else. But you know, medical field was where they wanted me to go towards, and I heard that, but I really just didn't have the passion to do it, and I stuck with my passion, and over time, that was a struggle going through college because there were remarks from my parents like this major is not going to give you anything, like you need to make money, all these things to be successful. But over time, I think, you know, they finally saw where my passion was and how it came to fruition, and like you can be successful in this field. And especially there's not a lot of people that look like me in this field either, and also being a woman, so it's just like i'm I'm just stuck to my my guns and just persevere there and just kept going. And I think they saw that, and they saw that I was happy, you know, continuing that passion, which is great. So I think in and itself, that's success, right? For your child to be happy doing what they wanted to do. And like one of the things, because for a long time, and I don't think I've shared this before, but like for a long time, I always thought like, because my dad pushed me a lot to be like, no, you shouldn't be going to this major. And I kind of told him, it's like, I know this isn't the major you guys wanted me to go into. And he brought up a story for him. He was like, well, that's the same thing as me. I didn't know this, but like he told me, you know, his family members were not supportive of him going into engineering. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Because all of his aunties were teachers. They wanted him to go into teaching. And he went against the grain and was like, no, my passion's here in engineering. So he stuck to it. And and he thrived and was successful in that as well. So like I didn't know that for the longest time. I was like, oh, I'm, going against my parents, but turns out he's going against his parents,
I
his
didn't know
family members.
that.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
he told me that, and I felt kind of a relief. But this whole time, I was like really hard on myself, be like, oh, I'm going against what they
Yeah.
want. And he told me his story. I was like, oh, okay.
That's so cool that he shared that with you.
I know, it was beautiful. So I was like, all right.
Yeah. I feel like maybe that was his way of saying, "Hey, like I hear you, but not like he just didn't know how to like articulate or like express it directly."
Yeah.
But it might have been a moment of him being like, "Hey, I went against that too," and maybe he was telling you, "Hey, it's okay," or
Yeah.
maybe I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, I mean,
Wow.
that's kind of what I got
Yeah.
from it. And I'm
Uh-huh.
just glad he shared that with me.
Yeah, that's so cool.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's so neat whenever we get to like hear I get to know a little like slice of like our parents, who they were before, or like like our aunts or uncles, who they were before
They
like,
became
this time.
parents.
Yeah, before they exactly
Yeah.
became parents. It's just wild, like how like that. It changes you. I can
Yeah.
imagine, right?
Yeah.
And changes your priorities and how you see life, and maybe your values even change. But yeah, I think I'm an educator now, but my mom, when I started to study music, I think it kind of made her feel good actually, because she's viewed herself as sort of like a creative, like she always liked to write, and she loves like literature and poetry and loves music. But her father, whom I never met, my grandpa, he was kind of like the community, like I don't like creative, I guess. Like he would create like make flutes out of like bamboo. So he would make them
Oh,
and then he'd
wow.
play them. And then he also like wrote music and wrote stories, and like kids would come to like hear his stories. And my mom, like she said, like they would poop and pee their pants because of how funny his stories were. And yeah, and he was just kind of this like seems like sort of like this fun, like creative individual. And so I think she kind of felt like I kind of inherited that. So I think it made her feel good and kind of like fed it a little bit into her, like, oh, that's, my child is, she's a creative, and
Yeah.
it made her feel good. And yeah, so um, I think that knowing how she was before, like really helps us like kind of like fill in the gaps of who these people are who are responsible for raising us. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. It helps me understand like why my mom did what she did. All the sacrifices that she like it didn't make sense to me because one, I was so young. I wasn't mature enough to understand.
Yeah.
But also now it's like, oh, like I didn't know she experienced this trauma in her life or whatever it is. And it's like getting to know your parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we just grew up and they were just there, and it's like they were telling us what to do and whatever. We went through our entire day making assumptions, I guess, based off like kind of just our experience at that time. But they had a life before we were born, and it's really cool to actually learn about like what they're passionate about, and maybe that's something that I can help her like get back into. Like my mom's very creative too, but she had to be an accountant. She's done that her entire life. She's retired now, and now she's sort of like kind of getting into like
Oh, cool.
painting and stuff and drawing and creative stuff. And I was like, Mom, you should totally try to pursue that.
Yeah.
So it helps me understand her as a person.
Yeah.
So, yeah, super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys both kind of alluded to like kind of like the sacrifice that was made, as they like immigrated to the country, and things that they had to do that we're still probably not even aware of. But I've been thinking about lately, like, oh, I really should pursue these things, like these creative pursuits, but I haven't fulfilled them totally because of various reasons. But I've been thinking how she came here, and although it wasn't my choice at all and it was hers, but just like really what an incredible opportunity we have like by living in this country. And I mean, I don't even know, and I'm sure you thought about like how your life would have been if you would have stayed, like where your family is from, where your parents are from, and I just can't even imagine. And the kind of person I would be and what kind of job I would have, like would I have like 10 kids already, things like that. And I just think I really, if for no one else, like kind of for like my ancestors, like I need to do these things because I have this opportunity. I really do. And there's really nothing stopping me except me. And like I just need to like effing do it.
Yeah.
You know, like for not for them, it's all for them, but it's kind of like in honor
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that beautifully. I think I feel that too sometimes. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to just do it for them and make them proud. But there is a part of me that's like, well, I have to honor my ancestors, you know. I have to, you know, give back to my mom or honor her in some way. But also at the same time, it's like, I have to pursue like what I'm passionate about and what I love. Otherwise, I'm just going to be miserable and
Yeah.
resentful.
Yeah.
So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. And you're doing it. I mean, this is like awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, very grateful and thankful that our parents made the sacrifice to provide a brighter future for future generations.
Yeah.
And that they saw that potential. So grateful and thankful during this season that our
Yeah.
parents saw, like, looked ahead, you know, be like, this isn't the place where I want to raise our kids. And they want to have a better and brighter future for the future generations. So props to them
Yeah.
in coming to this country.
Yeah. In the spirit of Thanksgiving and the holidays coming up, I'm sure that all of us, like our families, have certain traditions. But are there traditions that specifically, like your mom and her side of the family, that you guys still practice?
You know, we actually, I feel like our family was like a blank slate for new traditions, because the traditions that would usually happen just are just so like bound to El Salvador. Like they would always like have fireworks going on like in front of their house. You know, like we couldn't do that where we lived. And there's just mainly like music and food, and that was most of it, which we had already. But the tradition that I really loved was that in high school, she allowed us to drink Smirnoff Ice.
Oh,
With like a fancy, like, you know, glass. And that was where she like let her hair down. It was Christmas time.
Okay.
And so I think it was just like her like, yeah, go ahead and have some, Mija. You should have some, you know? I'm like, okay. And I had no idea that it was even alcoholic, but it's like 0.5, right? It's like,
like lemonade.
Yeah, exactly.
sparkling water.
Yeah, but I just remember that being like a tradition where she just would let us like drink, and it never got like out of hand or anything. But I was like, this is cool. Okay, like mom is kind of cool. But it took me a while to realize like what this was, and that it was like a spiked like lemonade kind of thing. But yes, the Smirnoff Ices, the red ones. I remember that with like a fancy glass. That's always been a really fun memory to go back to.
That's so fun.
Yeah. How about you?
It was just really like writing the letters to Santa Claus. Like we would do that like a week before, make sure you put it in the mail because it'll take a while to get to the North Pole, all of that. But it was like decorating the tree. That was like my favorite thing to do. And so like right after Thanksgiving, that's when she would put the tree up. And like my brother wasn't really into it so much, but it'd just be like a mom-daughter thing and just me helping her decorate. So that was like kind of a cool thing, but nothing really special. No alcohol for us, unfortunately.
No, we have
But
to,
yeah,
we have
like,
to sneak
we're
it
not
or find a
alcoholics.
way to get that to the table.
What did you guys do?
Same with the decorating during, Thanksgiving weekend, the long weekend. That's when we pull all the decorations down, and like my parents love decorating, like all the lights, there's so many trinkets, so many teddy bears with Santa Claus hats, and there's still a teddy bear that my mom had when I was a child. It's like over 30 years old. I'm like, you still have this?
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot of the decorating in terms of like culture, it was very food heavy. We would have the traditional Filipino foods like lumpia or some of these other rice cake desserts available. And we would make lumpia occasionally as a family.
Yeah.
Fun.
And I don't know about you, but religion was very huge in our culture. And we would go to church. They call it Simbang Gabi, which would be, I think, a 9-day don't
You
even
go
know.
to like a different church every night.
Yeah,
or
so
something
every
like that, yeah.
night, I think for 9 days, they go to different parishes
Mhm.
around the local area for mass, and then after that, after each mass, there would be food. There would be a feast, so just a bunch of like Filipino food. But I'm probably not giving the best background, but I just remember doing that, like at least for the parish that we went to school for, we would go to at least one of the masses because it's a lot of church services
Yeah.
for a period of time before it led up to Christmas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool. I feel like the common thread is like there's a lot of like community involved.
Yeah.
And I would say that's like the biggest thing. I guess biggest takeaway that I got from my mom is that like people are really important, like your community is really important, and that the most important thing was like, yeah, let's have some food, but like let's get together and like laugh and sing and just like talk and really just appreciate who is in our presence in that moment. And yeah, I love that. Like I've come to value that very much.
Yeah. I love it.
yes, the holidays.
The holidays. I hope you guys
holidays.
have great holidays and
Yes,
that
you
they're
Yes, you too. Thank
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited. It will be fun. In the spirit of the Thanksgiving, it will be like an open kind of door policy that friends and family are welcome, and so we'll have some friends that have become like family, and I'm really appreciative that my mom is like opening her doors up like that, and yeah,
That's so
whomever
awesome.
wants to be part of the community can.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that so much.
It's beautiful.
Right.
All right.
Thank you, Karina, so much for sharing your story. We're just so happy that you were able to join us. But for all of our listeners, go ahead and DM us. What holiday traditions, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year, whatever it is, what holiday traditions do you guys still practice? And do you still believe in Santa Claus? DM us
Claus.
at first_Gen_podcast. I think I got that right. And let us know. But thanks so much for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time.
Until next time.